So today we're going to talk about 7 surprising things men notice first notice in a woman. Now, I just want to share with you, I've seen other coaches do this topic, so I wanted to do my own version on it. And it seems like this is all centered on that first physical visualization of the person. So it's all based on their body, their hair, their skin, what they are wearing. It's mostly based on the visual. But I want to focus more on first impressions, whether it's an online dating connection, whether it's the first telephone call, or the first meeting. So we're going to go a little bit beyond the visual in this conversation. And whether you're a man or woman, making a good first impression can make all the difference beyond looks. And yet the reality is there are a lot of superficial men that only focus on looks, or that's all they care about. So I want to go deeper because I think that's what I think you'd all rather kind of focus on. Am I right? Please let me know if I'm right by hitting that like button right now. Now, before I get into these 7 things, I want to share with you, I was watching a show last night called Couples Therapy on Showtime. Couples Therapy on Showtime. Now, why am I bringing this up? Because, listen, there's the first impression, there's the first meeting, there's the first meeting, first date. There's the courting period that happens. Then there's the entering into a relationship. And then eventually, if you're in a fully committed relationship, whether you're living together or married, it seems to me that a lot of couples are focusing in the wrong direction. And what I mean to say is here are couples, it's kind of hidden cameras, actual real couples counseling. And I was fascinated by what I saw. And why I'm sharing this with you is we think of first impressions, but I oftentimes think we should reverse engineer everything. Look at it from, some vantage point of where you're going to end up. And given that roughly 50% of all first marriages end in divorce, and 65 to 75% of second and third marriages end in divorce, all the best first impressions will mean nothing if it's not sustainable. And what's fascinating to me is and I'm bringing this up for a specific reason. So just bear with me and I'll get into those 7 things in just a moment. What fascinates me is both the men and the women are participating. And not that that's overly fascinating, but men get criticized for not making efforts to try to fix and heal relationships. And what I appreciate about the show is the men are equally as engaged as the women are. What's also fascinating is, as well as women believe that they are good communicators, I was in the show and I was watching the 3rd season last night. I was witnessing women with really hostile communication skills, very violent communication. And why this is so critically important, I want everyone to order this book. If you watch my channel, I talk about it frequently. It's called Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg. All the books I recommend are listed below, and Jonathon recommend books in the show notes. And by the way, this is true of the men as well. I'm not singling out women here. But what was fascinating is that their communication skills individually were both rather poor. Their emotional maturity was rather poor. Their relationship skills were rather poor. It wasn't singular to the men being so bad. It was actually equally the women. I think it's really important because I know a lot of women hyper focus on men being the problem. And I'm telling you, men are pointing the finger at you and women are pointing the finger at the men, okay? And nobody's going to win if you're pointing the finger. And remember, when you're pointing a finger, there's 3 fingers pointing back at you. Now, what's in contrast is I have a community of friends, a spiritual community, I call them. And this group of people started, the women began the group calling themselves goddesses, and then eventually they brought their mate into the group, and it's called God and Goddess Group. And it includes regular, I call it group therapy meets pajama party, where they're actively working together as couples to heal And this happens very early on in the process. So they don't end up like on the show, 8 years, 10 years, 20 years in, trying to fix a relationship that has been built on a house of resentment. And so I'm inviting everyone to take a cue from something that Lewis Howes said early in his relationship with his now fiance. He said, I believe that having a regular coach or counselor as part of the beginning process of our relationship would yield better results for us if we actively work on communication skills. In particular, what I noticed in the show was a lot of the pain that these couples were experiencing goes way back to their childhood, goes way back to how they were raised, and they chose a partner to reenact this unhealthy dynamic within their childhood, and yet they're blaming their partner not taking ownership for their own experience. It's constantly blaming the other person. And I don't care if you make a great first impression, if you haven't done the inner work to heal childhood wounds and adult traumas, it's going to make it rather difficult. It doesn't matter if you make a first great impression. You can listen to these 7 things I'm about to share with you, and it still isn't going to matter. In fact, I highly recommend reading the book, The Hoffman Process. This is a deep dive into healing those childhood wounds and adult traumas that make you better prepared to be in a significant relationship. All right, so let's dive into these 7 surprising things. And when I say surprising, they're only surprising in that I don't think a lot of people think about all of these. And I've certainly witnessed this, so I want to share my perspective on this. So the first thing men notice in a woman is her smile. Her smile. Now, I'm bringing this up is I want you to imagine your dating profile. You know, I see a lot of women's profiles are like this, or I mean, resting bitch face, or like that's their first. See, I'm choked up by it. It's the first impression. It's the first thing we see. In fact, I was just looking at a woman's profile right before I got on here, and this is her first photograph. That's her first photograph. Okay, I mean, and then this is another photograph. Like, this is the first impression you're making. Okay, here's another photograph. You can now, mind you, you can, I mean, it looks kind of cute, but you can barely see this person. The first impression starts, if you're meeting people online, starts with a smile. And I'm not bragging when I say this, or maybe I am bragging, but I'd like to think if you look at my first photo, it makes a great first impression. Now, I know you can't see the quality of it, but it's a really crisp quality photograph. I've got a big, gigantic smile. And it's a good, I mean, you get a good representation. So the first impression starts with that energy of a smile with another person. And again, I see so many photos. It's like they're trying to do like, I'm like, when I see that, I see an unconscious human being. Now, they might be a very good human being in their heart, but my first impression is you don't really care to make a good first impression. You're more focused on trying to be artistic. You're more focused on trying to be, I don't know, maybe sexy or something. I don't know what's going on, but I can tell you, I find it very unattractive. And I'm sure I can speak for a lot of men when I say this. So putting together a vivacious smile, an energetic smile, makes a big difference. Number 2, effort. You know, roughly about 20% of the population, myself included, appreciate women that initiate effort. See, if you're not familiar with human design, and I'll bring a coach on to talk about this, but there's various different energetic designs made up of human beings. I happen to be what's known as a projector. So I need to be invited in. So when a woman makes effort, and it used to be called dropping the hanky. When a woman initiates just that contact, first off, we notice it because you're making the effort, okay? But it also demonstrates that you're a partner type of energy when you make effort. Now, I know, Jonathan, but I'm told to sit back in my feminine energy and just wait for a man to chase me and claim me because that's what I'm supposed to do. Folks, let me just say something about midlife, men. And since my channel is for midlife, which I say is after baby making years and before retirement. So if you're in the ages of 42 to 69, we're talking about a demographic of men who are rather beaten up, emotionally speaking. By the way, women as well might have had a contentious divorce, might have had to go through a job change in their life, might be having health issues. We men are not, for those of us in midlife, we're not in our 20s being fully driven by our penises and certainly fully driven by testosterone. At about age 40, a man's testosterone levels begin to drop and his estrogen levels actually begin to increase, according to John Gray. So, and women's testosterone actually, I think, if I'm understanding this correctly, I was going to say it increases, but I do believe a lot of women take testosterone supplements. So let me not make that statement because I'm not fully clear. But my point is, making it actually can pay off. I actually know several couples where the woman actually took the initiative. And I mean several dozens of couples I personally know where the woman made the initial effort, and these are happy couples in relationship. Number 3, depth. Depth. We notice depth. You know, I'm sorry to say when I get text messages from dating apps, hi. And I'm like, God, is that really the best you can do? And by the way, ladies, you get the same thing from men. So this isn't singular to a gender, but you know, that really, it saddens me that there isn't more depth behind hi. And I get it. They're a total stranger. It's a way to open the door. But here's the thing. In an online world, making a better first impression sets you apart. You know, I have an acronym called NICE, N-I-C-E, NICE. Stands for use the person's name when you can. Okay? The I stands for inquisitive. Ask a question. The C stands for compliment, and the E stands for energy, emoji, enthusiasm. So you could go something like this. Like, you see my dating profile. I mean, it says, you know, what I do for a living. You can simply say, hey, Jonathan, really nice to connect with you. I see you're a dating coach. What inspired you to do that? By the way, you have great energy from your pictures, and then a big, gigantic emoji. That sets you apart because that represents you have some depth. You went beyond the surface in this particular exchange instead of, hi, hope you're having a good day. Oh my God, whenever I get that, I cringe in sadness. I cringe in sadness because I'm like, I suspect you have more depth than that. So show it, demonstrate it, ladies. Show that you have more depth than the average person. We're all trying to make a good impression, so demonstrate it sooner rather than later. Number 4, this is energy. Fun, playful, silly. Okay, fun, playful, silly. Whether it's the first, whether it's an exchange in a first connection, whether it's a telephone call or the first date, because I've gone on dates with women who are cold, blocked, resting bitch face. Oh my God, I remember this one woman. She walked into the restaurant. I swear to God, she had resting bitch face. And that energy was so depressing. So depressing wouldn't be the right word. Well, it was disappointing. I mean, it was certainly disappointing, but it was so like, it brought my energy down. Like, I was all, yay, I'm looking forward to meeting you. And I see resting bitch face, and I immediately was closed off, blocked. And some women show up on dates closed, blocked, or entitled. oh my God, there's just this energy of I remember one woman, I was ready to, we were getting to the restaurant and she was about ready to sit down. And I had to, like, she just kept waiting for me to pull out the chair. And not that, and I, by the way, I do that, but there was this, I could just see it was like, I expect you to do this. And I like to do it from a place of generosity, not from a place of expectation. I think within energy, having a kind and generous spirit and open, as I said before. And some coaches call this feminine energy. Well, why does it have to be feminine? A man should be kind, generous, open, fun, playful, silly. It's not, that's not feminine energy. If a man does it, it's just playful energy. It's fun energy. It's open energy. Closed energy, blocked energy, entitled energy isn't masculine. So let's be careful labeling these things, because you want the same from a man. I'm hoping you want the same from a man. Okay? Because I don't subscribe to energy, feminine energy. I subscribe to good, healthy energy for both men and women alike. That's just how I view it. Number 5, how she presents herself and represents herself. How she presents herself and represents herself. I've kind of been talking about this a little bit, but I will tell you, some women's dating profiles are all business. It's all about sex appeal. And then I see a bathroom selfie or a bedroom selfie, and their whole, you can see behind the background, their place is a disaster. Their bathroom is a disaster. How you present yourself makes a big, gigantic difference. And here's a judgment that a lot of men and women have as well, is, do you look your age or do you look younger? You know, the fact is, do you represent, like, I mean, here's the thing, women are just as much the same about this as men, but do you look your age or younger? And why I'm talking about this, I saw a meme, had a picture of the women in the Golden Girls. Do you remember the TV show, The Golden Girls? I can't remember the actress other than B. Arthur. I can't remember oh, well, Betty White was in the show. But they showed a picture of all the women, and then they showed a picture of women the exact same age, Jennifer Lopez, Michelle Pfeiffer, and I think could have been Julia Roberts or something. And you honestly thought the women of the Golden Girls were literally 20 or 30 years older, and they were the same age. Now, obviously, a lot has changed because of hair dye and makeup and that sort of thing. But my point is how do you present yourself? How do you represent yourself is something that men and women notice. You notice it within men too. You ladies don't like the representation of the man holding the fish, you know, even though that makes it look like he is a hunter and he can provide food for you. He can catch a fish and he can provide food for you. But does that really represent this person's heart? Probably not. It can. Well, maybe it can. No, it can't. It can't. If you have a messy bathroom, you're not really, okay. I'm going off on a tangent here. Number 6. This happens on a first meeting. I see so many women who are sitting, I've had this happen where a woman is sitting across from me, and I can literally see every man that's ever hurt her, ever wounded her, standing behind her. She is wounded or stuck in her past by how she communicates, how her energy, her words represent. And by the way, men do this too. When they, talk about their ex-spouse, and you can feel the hostility, you can feel the wound, you can even notice that they are stuck in the past. This isn't singular to women, men and women. We have a significant percentage of wounded people or stuck in the past. This is why I'm such a big proponent of doing work like self-love work. And my book is What the Heck is Self-Love Anyway? A Journey of Personal Development, Self-Help, and Spiritual Work. Check out the link below to get my book. We have a significant percentage of people who are wounded in the past. This is why I'm all about vetting people early on. See this link right here? JonathanAslay.com/coaching. Links below as well. I'm all about learning to determine where this person at in their emotional well-being, before you invest too much of your heart. It's interesting. I want to share a quick story. Many of you know I did the Hoffman process, okay? And I remember being at the Hoffman process, and one of the women came to me at the end when she learned I was a dating coach. And she said, Jonathan, when I got here, I scanned the room. There were 20 men, and I was attracted to two of them. She said, me and another guy. He looked like an MMA fighter. I mean, actually a very handsome man, but very rugged and strong and had tattoos. He had a presence about him. So he made a good impression to her. And she said, after spending a week with all of the men and their heart, she goes, I would date every man that I saw. See, we went beyond the first impressions. You see, we all have a story beyond our looks, beyond our representation of ourselves. We all have an experience. And oftentimes when you get to know someone at a heart-centered level, it can make a gigantic difference. And in a moment, I'll share the seventh one. But as I'm talking about this, I want to share something very personal with you. Many of you know I lost a child. There's a picture of my son. Oops. There's a picture of my son, Connor. I love that picture. He's eating out of a bowl of cake mix, or batter, I should say. Frosting. He and his mom were baking. And 2 weeks before he passed away, we were sitting having lunch, and he said something to me. He said, Dad, I admire you so much. I admire you so much. And he said, I remember after the divorce and you lost your job and you were really in a state of depression and you were really in a dark, lonely place. And you started your dating coaching business from scratch. And you built a pretty big business to where you drive a sports car, you live at the beach. I mean, you do very well for yourself. And he said, Dad, I really admire how you've grown. I mean, this aren't his exact words. This is me paraphrasing it. But I really admire you, and you're my role model for being down practically in the gutter. And so my point in sharing this is we all have a story. You have a story. I have a story. Everyone has a story, just like that Hoffman group of men. And we oftentimes hyper focus on first impressions based on looks, instead of actually getting to know someone at a deeper level. And that's all I'm here to encourage. I'm encouraging everyone to be empowered in their life. I'm encouraging everyone to work on their own individual healing, just like I was talking about couples therapy in the early part of this conversation, so you can actually show up as your best self. And maybe recognizing that as we age, for those of us in midlife, you know, we're all, I don't want to use the word flawed, but we all have baggage. We all have luggage. We all have red flags. We all have stuff going on, and not everyone is meant to be with each other. I get that. But we all have a story that's worth hearing about. And that's my invitation for everyone. Okay, last but not least, the seventh surprising thing men first notice. By the way, you notice this in men as well. Self-confidence. See, I've heard, and the reason why I'm bringing this up particularly is I've heard a lot of dating coaches encouraging women to be incredibly agreeable to a man. And what I hear when I watch this is, be a doormat to a man because the man is the leader and you're supposed to be the follower and you're supposed to submit to him because that's what biblical people say you should do. Submit to your man. He is the leader and you should just be agreeable and smile. I'm going to say for the emotionally grown-up man, he appreciates a self-confident woman, a woman that has her own opinions. Now, opinions don't necessarily need to be domineering or righteous. I know a lot of women who are domineering and righteous, but I'm saying if you're having a discussion with someone and you make a stand for your sovereignty, you make a stand for your point of view, and you validate your point of view with good, objective logic and reasoning behind it, I'm encouraging you to not bite your tongue, to be agreeable like so many coaches will tell you to do in making a first impression, but also not to be domineering or righteous in your delivery. And I'm going to tell you, you're attracted to men who are self-confident, and men are attracted to women who are self-confident as well. So these are the 7 surprising things that men first notice in a woman. These are emotionally grown-up men. I hope you found value in this video. If you did, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this. Post a comment below. I do my best to read them all in the first 24 hours. As always, if you found value in my videos, please hit that like button. Please share this video. Please subscribe to my channel. Hit that notification bell so you can be notified of new videos as well. And also, if you want to connect with me directly, schedule a discovery call. Join my group called Midlife Love Mastery. Follow me on Instagram. Get my dating vows. Get the books I recommend. All listed below in the show notes and in the first comment as well.